Happy Paradise Tuesday to all in this first Tuesday of the month of June. As you know, the hurricane season officially began yesterday, but there's another season that we're into, the political season. So we have two seasons and very stormy for both, but we must prepare. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you have to be prepared for storms of any kind, whether it's man-made or natural storms. And I am pleased that the aspirants in this political cycle have an opportunity to come to this show at the table with Crucian Educator and present their platforms, give us their messages, and how they can move the Virgin Islands forward. Of course, everybody has the ability to make promises. We don't know exactly what's going to occur until persons are actually into office. But we voters have a responsibility. We have a civic duty to vet the candidates and to go to the polls and to cast our ballots. That's a duty. And that's what civic minded, law abiding citizens do in what is known as a representative democracy. Well, I'm hoping that all who are registered as Democrats, we're talking about the voters, will make sure that they are ready for primary election day. It's the responsibilities and obligation of the Virgin Islands government to fund elections, all elections, public elections, meaning elections open to register voters. So these elections are public. In order to vote, you have to be registered. There is a deadline before you can participate in the general election. You have to be registered no less than 30 days before the general election. So at this point, we have the general election coming up in November, which is open to all candidates and all registered voters. However, August 1st, we have what is called a primary election. It is a democratic primary election, but that does not mean primary elections are only for Democrats. Democratic meaning it involves everybody who is a registered Democrat to go and choose or elect which candidates they want to go on into the into the general election. It is what it is. At this moment, you only have Democrats running in the primary, not because the law excludes Republicans or any voter who is not a registered Democrat. you would have been able to vote for Republicans had there been more than 7 Republicans seeking a seat in the legislature of the Virgin Islands. However, that's not the case. If my memory serves me correctly, there's only one Republican running for the Senate from the District of St. Croix. I don't recall any ICM running. For the gubernatorial race, I'm certain because I have been keeping up with, to my knowledge, there is no Republican running to be governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, and no ICM candidate. So at this point, we only have Democrats in the, well, okay, we have a call. I was not sure I was going to receive a call. Let's see. Pleasant good morning. Welcome. Yes.
Good morning. This is Celia Smith calling. Oh, hey, how you doing?
Okay, pleasant good morning. I wasn't sure. I was anticipating a call in from an aspirant seeking the position of delegate to Congress. Unfortunately, the guest could not come into the studio this morning, but nonetheless, the guest has called in. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome to At the Table with Crucian Educator, Delia Smith, who is running for a position as delegate to Congress, or sometimes it's referred to as delegate to House of Representatives. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Peterson.
Good morning.
And good morning to all of your listeners. I appreciate this opportunity to have this chat with you this morning.
Could you tell us some of your background and why you're seeking the position as delegate to Congress?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning again, listeners. I would love to introduce myself again. I'm Delia Smith, native of St. John. I've attended public schools here in the territory, Julia Sprout School and Family Uterican High School in St. Thomas. I'm a graduate of the University of the Virgin Islands, and I started working for the VI government right out of high school. My very first job in government was for a St. Croix senator, Mr. Sidney Lee. I used to be his secretary for the St. Thomas office, and after he left office, he did not seek re-election. I then joined the Department of Law. Back then, it was the Department of Law, and that's when I met Miss Jada Finchine. She was the first female Attorney General that was appointed.
Yes.
And I met Ms. Finchine. She was quite an inspiration. I'll never forget those earrings that she wore. They were the hibiscus earrings. And I used to tell myself, one of these days I'll be able to afford those beautiful earrings that Machine wore. So that was all the way back in 1985. And so I started as a secretary, and some years later, just building the passion for the law, which is something that I've always had. I, finished UVI working part-time, working full-time and going to school part-time, also being a single parent. And once I graduated from UVI, I then applied to law school. I really had a passion for the law. And having worked as a secretary, I realized that I could really be a meaningful impact, bring an impact to the territory. So leaving just for the 3 years that it took to get the degree. And I came back, and this time when I joined the Department of Justice, it was as a lawyer. And I worked there in that capacity, I did 6 years. And I was, in a very short space of time, I became a director of the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Unit and prosecuted what was hundreds of cases involving domestic violence, sexual assault, even homicide cases. So that was my background, and then I was blessed to transfer to federal prosecution with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I had prosecuted a joint case with the federal government, and the success of that case opened some doors for me, and the then U.S. Attorney, Anthony Jenkins, extended an offer for me to come on board with the federal U.S. attorneys. So I did that for 17 years as a drug, I guess what you would call a drug czar, primarily prosecuting drug cases, gang cases, very violent cases. After 2021, when Mr. Biden became the president, I was selected by our delegate to Congress, Ms. Stacey Blaskett, referred my name to the president to be his appointee. And after being appointed by the president and going through a very vigorous background check, I was then referred to the Senate, the Judicial Committee, and then the full House confirmed me for the U.S. Attorney. And then, of course, historically, I was the first Black female St. John or any other just Virgin Islands female to serve in that capacity. And I did so with extreme honor to be able to serve my community. And I did that for 3 years, almost 4 years. So now so that's basically who I am.
So you said
that's my story.
The first female to serve as the U.S. Attorney from the U.S. Virgin Islands. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Was there a male appointed in that position before?
Oh, we've had several. Of course, the most recent was Mr. Ishmael Myers, Honorable Ishmael Myers, who is no longer with us. He was a senior judge on the Superior Court. He would have immediately predated me as a Black Virgin Island U.S. Attorney.
Okay. All right. Well, congratulations. You have an impressive legal background. And I'd like to ask you, why are you seeking the position as delegate to Congress?
Well, most people don't know that as a federal employee, especially a Department of Justice employee, we are prohibited from any engagement in any political activity. You're not allowed to be involved. You can't speak on any issue, whether it's local or federal. We must remain an agency that has a neutral position, and so we are prohibited from any such engagement.
That's because of the Hatch Act, correct?
Because of the Hatch Act, exactly. Okay. You can't even take a pen, with a political, campaign's logo into a federal facility. You cannot campaign. You cannot support any campaigns. You simply are prohibited because you must have that look from the public. They must be able to trust that we are impartial and that we are only concerned with the law and the enforcement thereof. So that is a very, very hard and fast rule. There's absolutely no wiggle room. It is complete and full compliance that's required. And so imagine, Ms. Peterson, that 20 years of my life living in this territory, being a citizen, a daughter of the soil, a concerned parent, a caregiver for my 93-year-old mother. The politics it does not escape you. You still are still functioning in this system. When the power goes out, it goes out at my house. But I can't speak to the harm and the hurt that is affects me, because that would be considered political speech.
Right.
When my car is broken because of the potholes and broken infrastructure, that affects me because I'm a citizen of this territory, but I'm prohibited from speaking on those issues. When I can't find a doctor to treat a family member and I have to invest thousands of dollars to leave the island in order to get the care that she needs, that's money that I can't afford, but I don't have a choice. I must spend that money. And so, notwithstanding all of those issues, I still cannot speak on those issues. I don't have the freedom to do so. I have an oath that I've taken to the federal government, and I must comport with every single one of them, because my job is to uphold the oath. Okay?
Well,
Now,
that explains why many people are saying that they have not heard from you concerning the issues, because
exactly.
you had to uphold your oath. But
Absolutely.
since when have
But I'm no longer. I'm
yes,
sorry, go ahead.
I was asking, since when have you resigned from the position as U.S. Attorney?
Well, I didn't resign from the position. The administration. This was my job as U.S. attorney was one of an appointment under the
Okay.
former administration, Biden. So once that administration ends, the job ends as well.
Oh, okay.
So that occurred back in April of 2025. So I'm now free, free to speak, free to advocate, free to serve, free, to be a meaningful and moving part of the change that I seek. And it's no longer, I'm no longer in the back seat, and now I can drive the car. And so that's where my passion lies. I have a lot to offer. I cannot continue, to just be silent, because I don't have to, and I have so much to offer my community based on the training and the discipline of being a lawyer for the Department of Justice, of understanding how to lead, given my last 3 years, and also just having the passion to know and understand, what people in my territory and all three islands, because when you work for the Justice Department in a leadership capacity, you are serving all three islands. It's not St. Thomas, it's not St. Croix, it's the Virgin Islands. And so I'm ready to bring this, my resources, my hard work and diligence and training for all these years, it must be put to good use. And I believe that this is the best way that I can continue to serve. So it's really a call to service for me, Ms. Peterson. I have never, as you can tell from my background, I have never had any political involvement or engagement. I've never been a politician. I can scream at my TV as loud as I want to, but that was as far as my involvement, went in the past. I am no more, limited by those restrictions.
Well, serving as a public servant is one thing, and being a politician is a different thing. But the reality is, you have to become a politician in order to get into the position, because we have what is known as representative democracy. And politics sometimes could really get messy, because it's an art and it's also a science. And those who, yes,
if I may, you see that as two different. You said politics and service to your government is two different things, but I don't see a separation politician, even though the word, sometimes can connote something negative,
Yes,
you still want someone who is qualified. You want
of
someone
course.
who believes in what they say, someone who has worked and in getting results. So the qualification of your leadership is paramount to getting what the benefit of your bargain. So if you I've spent almost 40 years serving my community, and I've also I think I have a proven record of service, and I think I could not come to you and ask for your support if I didn't have what I believe is the qualities that you and every other voter would be looking for in order to make that selection to represent you. So I don't necessarily see it as two different issues because one is very uniquely connected to the other.
Well, they definitely are, they come together. Um,
Mhm.
However, my perspective is that sometimes you could have a master politician who does he or she an excellent job of campaigning, but you don't know how they're going to perform until they get into the office. So a lot of times we have seen where somebody does a extremely brilliant campaign, gets into office, and the voters are disappointed. They're disappointed because often we get promises, and when the person goes in there, they may realize that there are things beyond your control, and you have to work with other people in this community. It's not a one member show. You have to work collaboratively with all the other public officials, work in harmony to ensure that we have a better Virgin Islands. So that's why I'm looking from that perspective, because I've seen it many times. I have been voting since the age of 24 years, and I've seen where absolutely wonderful. I loved some of the slogans I could recall. And then you're disappointed. They get in office and like, but wait, they said they were going to do this and so forth. So that's what I mean. But
Okay.
I know that there is a primary election. It's only Democrats in there, and there are four Democrats who are aspirants seeking the same office as you are. I believe they are well qualified. However, I can only make one choice. Could you tell me why you believe you're the best choice and what's your strongest points?
Well, I believe that I have shown and I've proven that I can work, you know, with all people. When you work for the Department of Justice, as I have for 20 years, you work under Republican leadership, you work under Democratic leadership. I was hired under President Trump, President Bush,
Biden.
the second,
Right? Or was it?
Bush.
Oh, it was the
And,
second Bush?
and then,
Okay.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I thought it was Biden.
No, I was hired as U.S. Attorney. I was appointed by Biden under for the U.S. Attorney position. But I remember I was hired all the way back in 2005.
Okay.
And in 2005, I was hired under a Republican. So I was hired as an assistant U.S. Attorney when I became a federal prosecutor. But that was under a Republican. I was hired under a Republican, President Bush. So that leadership was Republican until, of course, Mr. Obama. became president, and that was 8 years. And so then I worked under a Democratic leadership. And then we went from Mr. Obama, we went to Mr. Trump, and that was 4 years under Mr. Trump as a Republican leadership. Then we swung to back to Mr. Biden as a Democratic leader. And then for a short period of time, I worked under the Trump leadership for 4 months before they accepted my resignation as U.S. Attorney. I say all that to say that I understand that there are Republicans and there are Democrats. This is a national seat in Washington that will require that you understand that you cannot do anything alone. It takes alignment, relationships, advocacy, respect for your fellow, Congress people, senators, leaders. It's all of us. And so if you are going to get anything done, and do it successfully, those relationships are extremely important. Okay? And so I think that I've had this number of years working in the federal system, I think lends a lot to my ability to work and understand that there'll be times when it's your team that's in control, and there's going to be time, if there's anything certain, is that there's never going to be one party in power at a time. And so your alignment and your position is going to determine your success, how you treat other people, the relationships that you're willing to build, so that when they need you, you're there for them, and when you need them, they're there for you. It's about relationships. And, as I said, I've gone through a Senate confirmation process, so my name won't be a complete novelty to individuals once they can see that, hey, yeah, she's been through this. She's gone through a pretty rigorous background check to get a confirmation process completed, not only by the judiciary, but also by the full Senate. And so that's the outside looking in. But when you look in in the territory itself, I believe that my years of service, I've dedicated my entire career to serving my community. I am a proud Virgin Islander. Some of the best times I've had as U.S. Attorney is coming to St. Croix every single month. I made sure that unless the world was coming apart, I was on St. Croix, in that St. Croix office, right there in Christiansted on King Street, becoming one with the St. Croix community, finding out what the federal government can do to bring aid to the law enforcement community on the ground. Working with the AG's office, working with the Department of Police, with the commissioners, and finding every conceivable way that we can bring federal resources to the local government. We prosecuted me personally, even as U.S. Attorney, prosecuted gang cases, drug cases. As long as there was a federal nexus, we built that relationship, that partnership between the federal and local government, so that we can bring results to cases that may not have been able to come through the local system as quickly as we can move them, because we do have a Speedy Trial Act that requires us, from indictment to prosecution, that we be prepared, at minimum, be prepared to move a case within 70 days. And so, one only has to look at my commitment to my community, to my detriment at times. It can become a very dangerous place to be a prosecutor. People don't want to take responsibility, and the same people that have committed heinous crimes in our community, sometimes they decide, well, if it means I have to turn, that threat towards the government, then so be it. And so one only needs to look at how I have served you, and know that I will continue to serve you with the same level of dedication, the same level of commitment and sacrifice, and that the outcome speaks for itself, that I will bring the results as long as they're available. okay, that I would work to heaven's ends to make sure that I continue to make my people proud.
Well, you're not a complete stranger to the St. Croix community because
Okay.
I heard you used to go to Chicken Shack. Make,
Oh, I love chicken shack. Okay, look, I can tell you this. Every time I went to St. Croix, I could not come back without a whole chicken and four Johnny cakes. Okay, because my son swears that there is no place on earth that makes better Johnny cakes than Chicken Shack. So, I mean, can you imagine? I'm at Lorraine, it's Lorraine. That I'm begging people, please. I'm all the way in Christiansted. I don't have a car on St. Croix. I have no way of getting to Lorraine Chicken Shack. You know, these people have done me favors of going to bring me Chicken Shack before I leave St. Croix so that I could have a happy family when I get back. I mean, it's just, but that's what I find about Crucians. When they embrace you, you are just as good as God. Okay, they love to know that you appreciate the culture and the richness of the people, and when you get them, they are yours for life. One of the most heartwarming experiences I've had in canvassing on St. Croix is, it's hard to approach a Christian. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's hard because they're like, who is this woman? Where'd she come from? And I think that once and it's been hard for me because, my whole life was inside a sheltered building in a courtroom, where your opponent is a defense lawyer, and they don't scare me at all. But going to a regular citizen and saying, look, I'm Delia Smith, and I really would like to serve you in this capacity, and they just look at you like, who is this person, and why doesn't she just let me go along my way? But I continue to talk, and when I've gotten breaking that ice, the people I've met are just the most kind and loving people. I've had Christians offer me a place to stay. Like, you from St. John, where you staying when you come over? You want me to help you put up a poster? Do you need some food? I got somebody who could cook some chicken soup. It's the most heartwarming thing I've ever seen. And I really appreciate that I've gotten a good and warm invitation from the individuals that I have met, and I'll be there. In the coming week, St. Croix will basically be seeing a lot more of me. But as we always say, campaigning, money is what takes you back and forth between the islands. And I'm very happy to be able to say that I've gotten to the point where I can spend more time on St. Croix, and I'm looking forward to it, especially when it comes to Lorraine Chicken Shack. And so yes, that's my home away from home.
yes, the seasoned politicians, they've been in the business, the arena, so they know how they approach and all the tactics and so on. But I'd like to know, did you yourself came over to St. Croix to collect the 100 signatures you needed from this district for your nomination?
Did I myself?
Yes.
Well, I didn't travel to St. Croix, but I called the people that I asked, because keep in mind, Ms. Peterson, I'm also collecting from St. John.
Yes,
and on St.
I
Thomas.
know.
So I am on St. John, and that ferry back and forth, because today you might get 5 signatures, but you got to go back. You got to go back to St. John on a Wednesday. You went Monday, you got to go back on Wednesday so you can get some more signatures. And then you're driving all through St. Thomas to get the signatures. And if I could, I would have also been on St. Croix. But what I will tell you is that the overwhelming majority of the individuals who signed, it's because they heard from me. They heard from me, and they got a request from me to sign those petitions.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I'm glad I asked the question. I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm glad I asked the question because I am just absolutely astonished of all the debacles that have been taking place in terms of collecting signatures for nomination papers and aspirants not following the law and the rules. So I asked that because it has been brought to my attention that two aspirants for the same position, delegate to Congress, ran into a situation where they had to cure the defect. And I'm just stunned why anybody would go to a total unknown person, you don't know whether they're registered voter or not, and collect a signature. So I find that interesting to collect signatures from persons you have never met. You have no idea whether the person is a registered voter or not, whether they're on the inactive or the active list.
Right.
And that's why I asked the question. And then the other question I have, we had a situation the last election cycle with a candidate seeking delegate to Congress. And there was a controversy over the qualifications for the office. And I know it's in the U.S. code there. And I would like, and also we have it in the Virgin Islands code as well. But for clarity, could you explain this part that's causing so much controversy, misunderstanding? When it says you must be an inhabitant of the U.S. Virgin Islands as one of the eligibility requirements, exactly what that means.
Well, the citizen, everything is subject to an individual's constitutional interpretation of what laws are. And if that's a question you'd like me to opine on, I would much rather have time to review so that I can come up with an educated response. Because if everything is subject to, can be subject to different interpretations, and clearly that seems to be an issue of contention.
Yes.
So I wasn't, I would definitely be able to respond at another time so that it can be an informed decision, because I don't like, giving you a response that is not one that I've researched and have full facts and knowledge of what the terms that you're asking me about to opine on. So if you want to revisit that, I am available to do so. Because if there are contentious issues within the board and the rules that they set for candidacy and who's eligible, that is a matter that is more appropriate for the board as far as their response. And I know that there's a whole lot of challenges. There's been a lawsuit that's pending, and I think it would be a bit. I don't want to get ahead of the court and their ruling, because of course it is an ongoing litigation, and so I don't want to put throw any more fire wood on that fire.
I know.
I think the courts will make those determinations, and we will have to live by those findings once they're made by the court. But that's where I would prefer that those decisions be made so that we can all get clarity on what these laws mean, what the meaning of those different terms are, and how they should be, applied and by the board and the citizens as well. So that would be my response.
Well, I appreciate that response, and I'm looking forward to having you come into the studio. Are you prepared at this point to say when you're able to come in? And the next Tuesday, June 9th, I do have a guest, but I don't have anyone as yet who has made appointment for the other 2 Tuesdays in the month. Well, wait.
Okay.
So, are you able to say if you would be able to come into the studio this month in June?
I will, yes, I will. I am able to say that I would love to come back
Yes.
in person. As to which one of those Tuesdays, I am not prepared to say which one, but I
Yes.
definitely look forward to returning in person as I set out beyond St. Croix. And I will definitely, there's a whole lot of commitments that I have lined up, and I don't want to make a promise that I can't keep. But I do know that there should be time for one of the Tuesdays.
Okay.
Which one I cannot commit to right now.
And also those who I'm finally able to do this live on Facebook, on my Facebook page. Facebook suspended me for several months. However, I am now live on a Facebook page and also on the WS Facebook page. So those of you who are online, you can submit your questions. And so I encourage everybody, the listeners, anyone in general, any Virgin Islands resident that is on Facebook, to join Virgin Islands Affairs Forum. That way you can, at your convenience, sit back and compare the platforms and the political messages of all the candidates and scrutinize for yourself and thoroughly vet. So I'm urging everybody to join Virgin Islands Affairs Forum. That's a private Facebook group that's administrated by me. But I just like to make sure you answer the two questions. Do you believe all Americans should have the same rights, and why? So I'm asking that question now.
That question, you're asking that question of me?
Yes.
Well, it's a very broad question, number one.
Yes, it is.
It also, it implicates our status as a,
I know.
So that's another issue that it deserves an entire session. Okay, and we are Americans. We do not have a right to vote. Like other territories, like Puerto Rico, Guam, the American Samoas, northern. We Guam, we don't have all of those rights extended to us. And so, to ask me if I think we should share the same rights, absolutely. I'm an American. But it's not that simple, as you are aware, Ms. Peterson, that it's not. It's simply not that simple. Okay, and so there's many layers. That is, if there were ever a multi-layer question, that is it. What my feelings are, however, does not answer the question, because there are so many other factors. There's whether or not we have a constitution. How do we define ourselves as a territory? Do we want to be incorporated or unincorporated? What effect does the Constitution have to the existing United States Constitution? Does it trump the rights that are already provided under the Constitution and its amendments? There's no simple answer to that question. It's a multifaceted, multi-issue. Many considerations must go into the answer. So if I were to give you an answer, it would be purely emotional, because that's all I'm afforded, given what we are under the United States flag. And so, there was a time, Ms. Peterson, when my mother, all of her brothers were serving in the United States military all at the same time. When I saw that movie, Saving Private Ryan, those were not considerations. Those situations, I'm sure, happened with many Virgin Islands families back in the day, because it was, we had a draft and everybody had to serve. I'm scheduled to travel this weekend. My nephew is Islander, you can't vote for the president. But
Right.
again, it is a multifaceted issue, and there is no one answer. And to give you an answer, it would just be one that comes from my heart. It's not where I'm considering all the legal and constitutional issues that would give an informed answer. But if you want an emotional one, yeah, you've got one.
Well, I know
That's
it's an emotionally loaded question, and it's thought provoking, and it's intentional. And most people, to be honest, most people don't even answer the question. But I still accept membership into the Facebook group.
okay.
But yeah, it's thought provoking. But I like the one part of your message. You said you're an American, and that's how I feel. And I go based on the definition that I see in the dictionary. Not all Americans are U.S. citizens, but all U.S. citizens are Americans. And when I say that is American Samoa, they consider themselves Americans. Hence, that's why it's called American Samoa. However, they are not U.S. citizens. They are U.S. nationals. But I've heard people in the U.S. Virgin Islands claiming, I am not an American. I am not, I'm a Virgin Islander. And I'm thinking, do they not understand when you look at the passport, it's the same for everybody, whether you're from unincorporated territory.
Right.
If you have an American passport, your nationality is USA. And so I like the answer.
Well, Ms. Peterson, I couldn't be a prouder American. And the only thing prouder of or as proud for me is being a sister of the soil, being a Virgin Islander, being a part of the Caribbean diaspora. It is the most richest part of who I am. And, I grew up as a little girl on St. John. When I grew up on St. John, I had less than 1,000 people living on St. John. And we didn't have school buses. We had to walk back and forth from home to school. The life it was almost like living in a little town as opposed to living on an island. You didn't get to come to St. Thomas until it was time to go to high school. We had to take a boat every day, twice a day, regardless of whether you were in hurricane season or not, to get to high school and back twice a day. Okay? So, I grew up with every people from every island, St. Lucia, Dominica, St. Kitts, Antigua, Nevis, Montserrat, Trinidad, Venezuela, every island you can think. The BVI, my father was from Tortola. I know about frying potatoes and cutting cane sugar cane and going to market on Saturday to sell pig and goat and cow meat. And for me, a child like myself who was raised by a single parent with 8 children, for me to say that I made it as one of 94 U.S. attorneys in the entire United States of America, you just have no idea how proud as an American. I couldn't be a U.S. attorney if I wasn't an American. And so that American flag means the world to me. It is who I am. And everywhere I go, I am so proud to say I am an American.
I'm proud to say
too.
Continue
to serve.
And I've heard that per capita in the Vietnam War, we Virgin Islanders had the most losses per capita in the Vietnam War.
Even just serving, per capita, the number of servicemen and women, per capita. You didn't know that we are even smaller than we were pre Irma and Maria. We're even smaller now. We went from over a 6-figure population to now we're a 5-figure. It's scary. But yes, we do have per capita a very high number, if not the highest, as far as servicemen in our United States military. And, I can't wait to stand on, before the United States Air Force to see my nephew having served so many years,
Wow.
honorably, to now say I'm ready to retire. It's service, and that's what I look forward to. I am proud to be an American. I am extremely proud to be a Virgin Islander, and I'm very, very proud to be a sister and daughter of the Caribbean. And that's the thing. We know one thing. We're so absolutely unique to be in the Caribbean, to be in the Virgin Islands, to be American. Who else can say that?
Right.
Who else can say that?
And Smith is your family name?
You just have to embrace that. I'm sorry?
Is Smith your family's name?
Well, my father is a Smith from Tortola, and my mother is a Bonelli from Savannah. Okay, so I am a Smith. My father, my mother married a Smith from Tortola, from Long Trench, Boy Hill area, who was a farmer. He worked for the Aperture. That's how I learned to grow. My love for growing everything. I can pick a leaf. I have a green thumb, you give me a leaf and I'll make it a tree. Okay, because my father showed me.
I have a green thumb too.
Okay.
And
right.
I love planting seeds.
Exactly.
Metaphorically as well as physically.
I see, yes. And my mother is from St. Thomas, and she is from Savannah, which all of the older families, Bonelli, and many other older grassroots families from St. Thomas all settled in Savannah. But they moved to St. John in the late 50s, and that's why I was blessed to call myself a St. Johnian.
Well, you probably have roots and related to just about everybody on the island of St. Thomas and Tortola and St. John, of course.
And my father, in his early days, he used to work on St. Croix because that's where all the construction was. So he was gone from our family for months at a time. As a matter of fact, that's why I have a sister who was born on St. Croix. Okay, so that's a whole other story. But so yes, he's from the globe. Okay, that's who I am. That's who I am.
And we have the Smith Ferry.
I know it's almost 9 o'clock, so I have to, just again thank you profusely, from really sincerely, for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself. I also thank all of the listeners for giving me this time and listening to who I am, and expressing the interest just by listening to getting to better know who Delia Smith is. I look forward to seeing you all on St. Croix. I'll be there. And I do want to mention before I leave that, I would like to welcome the community. Chicken Shack will be there on Saturday, June 13th. Not this Saturday, but the next one. We'll be there from 5 o'clock. Just welcome everyone to come and meet me and my team, and to ask any questions, to just to celebrate with us for a couple of hours on the 13th at the Rain Chicken Shack, my favorite place in the world.
Thanks for that blessing, Crucian. Well, once again, Crucian, welcome. We look forward to having you here in the studio of WSTX, the number one radio station in the Caribbean. It's been a pleasure and an honor to listen to you. And thank you. Thank you for a very lively presentation, and I'm eager to learn more. So once again, I invite you to put your messages and Virgin Islands Affairs Forum. Have a blessed afternoon.
You too, and thanks again.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. We had the candidate seeking the office of delegate to Congress, deep roots in St. John, her native island. She's a St. Johnian, serves as a U.S. attorney for several years. You, the voters, especially Democrats, since only voters registered as Democrats will be allowed to participate in the primary election. I'm urging everyone to vet your candidates. I don't tell anybody, I don't want to influence anyone. I just would like to inspire everybody who is eligible to vote to please register to vote if you haven't done so. If you are not sure whether you are on the active or inactive register list, contact the elections system office here in Sunny Isles. If you're in the district of St. Croix, if you're in the St. Thomas St. John district, contact the office there. You can also go to the website vivote.gov. You can register to vote online. So the young people, you who are about to make 18 years old or have made 18 this year, I'm encouraging all of you to register online. You don't have to go in the office. This is a digital era. You know, unlike your great grandparents who are not into the digital era, you know how to use a phone or a laptop or a desktop or iPad and how to go to vivote.gov. It shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to go register to vote. You have to upload original documents to register to vote, such as a birth certificate. Everybody has a birth certificate if you're born in the U.S. Virgin Islands. You are natural born U.S. citizens. Every person that is a U.S. citizen, whether natural born or naturalized, is an American. And the official title of our territory, as is written in the Revised Organic Act of 1954, is the Virgin Islands of the United States. So we under the jurisdiction of the United States of America. The U.S. Virgin Islands, you can refer to the territory as U.S. Virgin Islands. It's not the official title, but it's acceptable. The U.S. Virgin Islands, consisting of the four main islands, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, and Water Islands, along with the Keys, are part of the United States, not physically, legally, in terms of fact that we are American citizens or US citizens. Because of our political status as an unincorporated territory of the United States, the entire US Constitution doesn't apply to us. Hence, we do not vote for the President of the United States. But we can vote for a member, a non-voting member of Congress. So you have an opportunity to elect someone to serve as delegate to Congress. But in order to elect anyone to that position, you must be a registered voter. So once again, thanks for listening to At the Table with Crucian Educator. And hopefully we all will be participating in the process and will be educated, enlightened, and inspired to do the right thing. Your vote is your voice, and your voice is your vote. Live, listen, learn,